my last thought I said to the Lord was like, oh, that's a different kind of joy drop, this video post when it happens. And he goes, yeah, but that's what joy is. It's freedom. And Lulu, the only reason why you're in joy because you always come away and self-reflect with me. And because of that, a lot of times it's not everything else has to change. It's when you change, everything else changes. So last episode, I covered what was happening with me in my time, and the Lord showed me, areas of worshippers and also leaders of churches. And if you missed that, just go back and have a look at it. Today I'm going to be talking about the third thing that I felt the Lord was showing me, which was prophets and seers. And I'm not talking about the gift of prophecy, because we know that's a whole different function, but the office of prophets and seers. So so I'm just going to repeat it. It's like, oh, that's touchy, Lulu. But anyways, as I wrote in my post, I talk about how, we hear in part, and what I felt the Lord showing me about this was, which I wrote, I get, only seeing the one side of the story was what I heard and what I felt the Lord showing me. So I'm explaining how hearers and seers sing without time and space. It's in part because that's what I feel. That's what happens. It's like seeing like a lot of times when you hear it, or when you hear people speak that are, in this office, are actually forward, like it hasn't yet happened. So, which tells me, no, I just asked the Holy Spirit, and he was like, yeah, it's without time and space. That's why you can see what we see. Like, when you get that part, but it's in part, that's all you kind of need, So I start to explain that we confirm one another supernaturally. We don't have to know each other personally or live in the same country to confirm each other, right? Our relationship with God does. So the spirit within us kind of confirms, like, oh, yes, that's what's going on. How did they know that? La, la, la. It happened with us this last week, where, Lana Vosa put out a word, and Jeremy doesn't read long, posts, but it just caught him, and the Holy Spirit was just telling him, read this. And he couldn't believe it. Like, I got home, he's like, babe, you got to read it to me, because he'll just read and goes, please, I want to hear it all. And, but we don't know her personally, but it was like she knew exactly what was happening with what was going on with us. In part. Anyway. But what he was showing very quickly with this was, I get one side of the story is stupid and dumb to only believe and create a whole belief system on that. So I feel, and as I wrote in this, it was like, so we see and hear in part. I think that gives us a clue of how this all works. Did the Lord show the prophets in the past just happy things, or did he show the warfare ahead? So if you can see that, it was just like all these questions were just like, ask this, ask this, ask this, ask this, ask this. I'm Islander, okay? Man, back in the day, I used to say ax, and my English teacher would always say ask, and now I just say, well, you just heard me. So pronounce your K's, okay? So I think that, so that's what the question, wisdom and understanding has to be our true love here. To say only the good stuff and discredit spiritual warfare is stupid and dumb. That's what I heard. That's what he was showing me. He was showing me that, that we're getting into, and it's going, are we getting into the space of, is we only say happy things, and like all happy things, or if it's, all happy things. I don't even know if it's wrong or right. I just but this is what he was addressing with me. It was like, he said heaven on earth, spiritual on natural. The imbalance comes when we only see the happy, or we only see the spiritual warfare. the answer is simple. See the whole story once all the parts are heard and seen, and then ask the Lord what he would do to make it all come back to him. But if, so I don't know. I just when I wrote that and I put a full stop, I heard, oh, you're just naive, Lulu. And I'm like, well, then I'd rather be naive with the things of God than the things are not of God. You know what I mean? It was just, I just heard it really quickly. Oh, you're just naive. So when I say naive, oh, you're just naive, Lulu, it's not a voice that's coming from within me. I hear it from the outside. So I hear it like, oh, you're just naive, Lulu. And it's with that tone, like that snarky, like, you're just naive, Lulu. You can't say stuff like that. And it all has to be happy. And I'm like, well, I will be naive with it, and that's me responding to that voice, which is a lie. I'm like, well, then I'd rather be naive with the things of God than, naive with the things that ain't of God. So and then I just moved on, and it was just, it felt like it was just like, when you're in a meeting and you've got like, order of the agenda, it was like that. This time with God was like that. I was like, these are the things I'm about to show you, and these are the things we need to address, and these are the things you need to ask and put it out there and let my children think. All right? And I was like, okay. And I was going, we may not know all the answers of it, and, but maybe let's just put it out there and think about what are we doing. Are we just, is it just, because it's not cool. I feel like he was like, this is not cool. And and then I went on and talked about, how we blame God, when sickness doesn't get sorted. And he just been like all of that stuff when I asked God about, sickness. And everyone knows about my sister, Emma, she kidney dialysis, and she's constantly, her body is against her. And and when I ponder on my beautiful sister Emma, it's like the Lord just shows me the story about how he was delayed. Like Jesus was actually delayed to bring the message to Daniel. I think it was Daniel. And when he goes, I'm sorry I was delayed 3 days. Because I was, I had to ask for Michael to come so I could come to meet with you, because I was fighting the Prince of Persia. And then that is the story. I really like that story. And I remember one time when Helen needed me to get, it was like a few years ago, Helen was having this thing happening and she needed me to call her. And I never did. And then I was sitting on the toilet. Where I get some inspiration. I was sitting on the toilet and I heard this voice. I felt it was the Lord saying, call Helen. And I'm like, call Helen. And so I picked up my phone and I called her, and she was like, you didn't get, and I go, I asked you to call me, and I go, I just got it right now. This guy says, oh my gosh, there was a delay. And then there was that time when we got this, anyway. And it was like that. In the post, it was like, a lot of times we blame God when something doesn't happen or sickness doesn't go and all of that, but we forget that there was that whole warfare happening. There's a whole battlefield happening. And I don't know why we tend to stay away from talking about it. And then when I said that, guys, why are we not talking about it? Why do we discredit it? And when people actually mention it, it's actually shut down. Why do we do that, Lord? And he was like, because in the 80s, we all you guys talked about was the devil and never about me. And now, in your era right now, you just all talk about me and forget about that, that thief in the night that's actually coming against everything that I have for you. And I was, like, I've given you the tools and I've given you the authority and the power to fight that, to fight everything that he comes against you with. I've given it to you. And it's going, so again, Lulu, can you see the displacement? Can you see the imbalance of what's happening? I'm like, oh my God. Yes, I can, Lord. Yeah. And and that was the what he was showing me in that time. And I know, and I was like, that's a lot, Lord. That's a lot. Like, that's a lot of stuff you want to say, like, you know, or you want people to see. And it's not to a specific church, it's actually to the body. Because the body of Christ, we are all worshippers, you know. We are many churches that become one. We all have different functions, but there's one thing that we are doing, that he's actually saying, hey, what's going on there? Like, you know, yeah, and that's what he was saying. He was like, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. Let's start to think about these things. And that, yeah, and so I then titled Sickness versus Life. And again, I only speak from my experience with my sister, Emma, with all the sicknesses, that it's not just kidney, you know, dialysis she's dealing with. There's so much more other things that's happening with her. But it's like, you know, the enemy is constantly trying to take her life. And I was like, yep, that is real. And, you know, what's real too is God's healing there is all done for you. And you know, one sickness does not define you. It's not who you are. And two, will you live out your promises? Like I spoke before, will you live out your promises that God has promised you with the sickness or not? And we just, you know, because a lot of times people's lives stop and just blame that guy. And we forget about the one who kills, steals, and destroys. And I'm like, no, let's use what we've got. Fight that by, and how I saw it was like, remind him what his destiny is. He is in a lake of fire for all eternity. And every time that you move forward and move towards the promises that I have for you, that reminds him of his destiny. And I'm like, oh, shut up. Like, you know, but that's how it was. It was like, whether we're sick or not. And I said that to Emma, whether we're sick or not, will you do it? She goes, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, let's go. It's for my, like, you know, that's not the actual purpose of doing it, but that must be a kick in the guts for him, where he sees that he's doing everything possible to take your life, and you keep getting up, and you keep hopeful, you know, you just have this life in you, which is from God, because you were destined to walk that way and be alive and just move forward. Like, that's what I get. And yeah, and it's just like, just got to balance this all out. You know, who do we call? Definitely ain't the Ghostbusters, but he's calling out, come on, those who are followers of me, that believe in how I move, that believes in my unity, come out now and let's call it out. And just do, you know, and the last question of that whole moment with God that Sunday, last Sunday, was like, he just said, who is going to hear me and do exactly what I ask? Who? And that's it. It was it. And then, yep. And then I came out of it. And then my last thought I said to the Lord was like, oh, that's a different kind of joy drop, this video post when it happens. And he goes, yeah, but that's what joy is. It's freedom. And Lulu, the only reason why you're in joy, because you always come away and self-reflect with me. And because of that, a lot of times it's not everything else has to change. It's when you change, everything else changes.